From Wonder Woman to Starfire to Catwoman, female superheroes have often been drawn in a hypersexualized fashion. Why is this? Why do male heroes get dignity while women are sex objects? You only have to look at heroes like Power Girl to see the discrepancy.
First thing you think when you think Power Girl, for me, is like that boob window. Like, it's just so in your face and it's just so unnecessary. Like, she's just this hot blonde. I don't even know like much about the rest of her character just because I feel like everything about her is just the way she looks.
In the 90s, women were stripped of their personalities to give us what we really came for: sex and guns. Writers depowered female superheroes or created girlfriends for popular superheroes, only to kill them off to escalate drama. The industry switched gears and placed sex and violence over storytelling and creativity.
I think you could go back to before the 90s to the 60s and the underground comics movement in the United States that was the alternative comics movement. And I think you can see there how women were very sexualised, hypersexualised, and that this was it feels to me, reading it, as though it was a sort of badge of honour for the artist to be sort of doing this very edgy, borderline pornographic work.
In the 60s, a new form of political satire was on the rise, the underground comics movement. However, these comics were male-dominated, and rather than providing a smart political approach, they tended to endorse violence and misogyny. Female artists suffered most of all. Robert Crumb was a pioneer of the movement. His comics were violently misogynistic. Women were raped, dismembered, mutilated and murdered, sometimes all at once.
Sadly, I think that the sexualization of women in mainstream media and comics has influenced the way that I draw women, and I try to think about, when I'm drawing women, how I can break those stereotypes, but I also feel like I want the women that I draw to look appealing, and I feel like I have to conform to the way that society's told me women should look and the way that society finds women appealing.
Women artists often feel they have to conform to a certain stylistic way of drawing, and when they break from this, they open themselves up to judgment and scrutiny.
But there is still a huge problem. So, for instance, there's a comics festival, the largest comics festival in France, well, in Europe really, in Angoulême, which is for, and it has the Grand Prix d'Angoulême, which is, it's very sought after. And in 2016, there was a huge outcry because no women were on the shortlist. And in the entire history of Angoulême, I think with the exception of last year, only 2 women have ever won the prize. So you can see there immediately the problem.
Perhaps this lack of female inclusion in this creative field contributes to women being depicted in this way, which leads to the question, why are men depicted as a wall of muscle?
One thing that I know a lot of people talk about is the way that they think men are also sexualized in comics to the same degree that women are, and I would personally disagree with that. I think that when I see a male superhero in a comic, that looks to me like a male power fantasy more than a sexualization.
The male dominance of the industry is slowly being eroded with the rise of women creators and healthy depictions of female characters.
I would like to see a range of women who are extraordinary in their ordinariness, who are everyday women doing marvellous things that go unnoticed but that are really good stories.